Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Yesterday we spoke about the possible playstyles for the Ogre Kingdoms, and we briefly touched upon their own unique lore of magic, the lore of the Great Maw. And what I want to do in this video is go over it in detail as we've gone over some other unique laws of magic, and just discuss as to how they could be implemented into Total War Warhammer. So without further ado, let's begin. As always, keep in mind that the laws of magic being discussed with these videos are from their most recent representation, which of course would be Warhammer 8th edition for the Ogre Kingdoms. The lore of the Great Maw, like many other unique laws of magic, have 7 spells, 1 signature spell and 6 standard spells. As we are aware, the laws of magic in Total War Warhammer, however, usually only have 6. So naturally, one of these spells would have to be removed. Which one, we can't be too sure, but we can discuss them either way. The first spell in question is Spine Marrow, which is the signature spell for this lore, an augment which bestows the Stubborn special rule on the targeted unit. Stubborn on the tabletop was used in a way to help you in close combat, where you wouldn't suffer any negatives towards your leadership. This, as far as I recall, has not really been implemented in Total War Warhammer, barring Unbreakable and certain other traits. So if anything, I believe that this spell itself would be the one that would not get implemented into Total War Warhammer. Instead, this might be introduced as a basic trait for the spellcasters of the lore of the Great Maw, perhaps increasing leadership of anything around them by a certain radius. But now let's move on to the 6 main spells. First, of course, we have Bone Crusher, a magic missile spell, which, of course, as we are all used to magic missiles, there's no need to explain. It's likely, because this is such a generic spell, that Bone Crusher will be the one that you will have access to as soon as you recruit a Lore of the Great Maw wizard. It makes sense, as of course this is nothing too special. Next, let's move on to Ball Gorger. Here's where things start to get a little bit interesting. Ball Gorger is an augment spell which increases the strength of a targeted unit +1. This in Total War Warhammer would be a buff spell which would increase either melee attack or weapon strength. Now what you can see here is that there is a second variant of this spell too, where you can choose to overcast Ball Gorger, which would then increase the strength of all friendly units within a certain location. So we have our first spell that can be overcasted, and we won't have to wait long until we get our second, with the third spell of this lore known as Toothcracker. Toothcracker is an augment spell which increases the toughness of a unit until the caster's next magic phase, another buff once again. Toughness translated into Total War Warhammer could be interpreted as armor or even melee defense, or sometimes even both. This spell can be casted on a single unit, however it can also be overcasted and be placed in a certain area which can then buff up a variety of different units. You might notice that a few of these spells are able to be overcasted, and it's mainly because, well, this is how the Ogres mostly got the most use out of their magic. Overcasting buffs on their own units was the best way to go and make them much more dangerous on the battlefield. But with that, let's move on to the 4th spell, Brain Gobbler. This is a hex spell which would make the target take a panic test. Now of course, we don't really have panic tests here in Total War Warhammer, so it's likely that this would reduce the leadership of a targeted enemy. This spell could be overcasted, but it only increased the range of said spell. I'm imagining that a pure overcasted variant in Total War Warhammer would have an area effect leadership reduction for any enemies within that area. It just makes sense, as so far we really haven't seen any damaging spells. Next, we'll look towards the 5th spell of this lore of magic, Troll Guts. This was by far one of the most popular spells to be used on the tabletop, so I'm imagining that it would be here too. This is an augment spell, which the targeted unit would then get the regeneration special rule. I'm assuming here it would be changed around to a healing spell rather than regeneration, as augments will go away after a while, and still a healing spell that you could use on a targeted unit, especially Ogres, which we would imagine to have a very large health pool despite very low numbers of actual entities. It's something that would be quite powerful. This spell itself could also be overcasted once again, and could affect all units within a certain area. We're already used to Law of Life spells and other healing spells which can do this, so it's not really that off balance. Though I can imagine that it would be quite powerful to have in the hands of the Ogres. And lastly, we have the powerhouse spell of this spell lord known as the Maw. Now you might notice here that it says that the Maw is a direct damage spell, but it's actually not. This is a common issue that happened a lot in 8th edition, where spells had some weird classification when it came to this. What it really is a very strange form of vortex. So as it worked, you would cast it in a specific area and it would go to another area after you rolled your artillery dice and your scatter dice. When it finally stopped moving, anything caught under the template would then take damage, and big damage at that, sometimes even multiple wounds. While this spell on the tabletop was very good, you have to take into account that of course your targets would not be moving as you casted this spell, whereas in Total War Warhammer, your targets are constantly moving, so it makes no sense to have it implemented like this. I'd say the best way it could go about is either in a very similar sense to how Skaven Plague currently works, which by the way is nothing like its implementation on the tabletop, or as a standard Vortex spell, both of which would work rather well. I'd say that maybe the Plague system works better, as that way there could be a proper visual representation of the Maw opening up, doing its damage, and then seeping back into the earth. I think something like that is quite lore-friendly, and not many people who are very closely associated to the tabletop would mind so much. That's honestly everything about the lore of the Great Maw. There's not a lot to discuss like there was with other lores of magic, as obviously the Ogres are more simplistic in terms of implementation. What I would say is maybe the lore attribute, Blood Gruel, as you can see on the top of the page, could be introduced as a specific trait to all casters of the Lore of the Great Maw, but instead of giving them a chance to regain a wound, they would just passively have regeneration, or just have this implemented as a form of a skill that they can acquire at like level 5 or so, something like that makes sense? But what do you guys think about the lore of the Great Maw? Like I said, it's not the most complex lore of magic, but sometimes simplicity is always the best. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince, and Ogre for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman, and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel has been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.